Shalom, shalom, brothers from the hopeful elect, man. Brother Yeshaya,
Brother Denal. Brother Azrael.
coming at you with a think about it Thursday. And today's topic of discussion, man, is you got some nerve, right? And the reason this lesson is titled as such, this conversation is titled as such, is because in the truth, man, not even necessarily just in Israel, but a lot of people who may come to this knowledge, and a lot of people who may be new to this understanding and this way of life, a lot of people always have something to say to others, especially to our bigger brothers and our elders who've been in this knowledge and faith for a long time, have brought in many fruit, and have also won over many souls. Well, it's same equivalent to bringing in many fruit, but it's very disingenuous for people who aren't as versed, as studied, as learned, who are new in this thing, to kind of give their 2 cents about what other people should be doing, man. And it stems from a comment someone made under one of my posts on my page, and just out of trying to have a genuine conversation with the person, never received word back, had seen on their story they put stuff up and make videos about, this is the proper way to do stuff, and this is what's going to happen, and this is how you do this. And I think it's very disingenuous, and the nerve of, people to have the audacity to, I'm not going to say speak against, but speak against the work that men are doing to win our brothers and sisters over, right? So I want to go to our first precept real quick. Whoever was sharing the screen, if you could share that for me, Baba Kasha. Khan. So this Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 7. And it says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. So I always like to read this in a lot of videos that I've been on. You can see I always like to read this precept because every time we get on here, we hope to give somebody wisdom and understanding. And every time we go on the street corners, we hope to give someone wisdom and understanding. Each and every day of our lives, we hope to obtain wisdom and understanding from the word, or for whichever situation the Most High creates to give us that wisdom and understanding, right? And a lot of times what happens is a lot of people come into this knowledge, or they get a little taste of the knowledge and then start thinking, well, they may disagree with your way, so they start trying to do it their way and saying their way is the way to get it done. You know what I'm saying? And your way not going to work, right? And we have to get out of that spirit a lot of times of doing exactly that, being disingenuous towards one another, I guess speaking against the works and the fruits against other men that have done the work for a long time and bear many fruit in this truth. And it's one of the things that will keep us divided as a nation, when you can't see past something that you wouldn't do, or a situation you haven't been in, therefore you can't relate to it. So it'd be hard for you to give wisdom according to that situation, right? For instance, if brothers are not, there's always this discourse and argument between people who go out and teach on the street and people who don't go out and teach on the street, right? And there's a lot of, like one of our brothers like to call it, what they call it, not trigger fingers, not Twitter fingers, but keyboard warriors, right? A lot of keyboard warriors who like to criticize the works of those brothers who go out and labor from behind the cell phone, or from your laptop at home, or your MacBook. So all in all, I'm saying that there's a lot of brothers who like to criticize the work of those who go out and stand on the highways and byways to win our people over. And that's one of the things in our nation that I think has to change in order for us to all be on the same page, is understanding that different strokes for different folks. See, just because your way of doing something is different from my way doesn't mean my way is least effective. The same way, just because your way is different from my way doesn't mean that I shut down your way of bringing in knowledge, right? It should be even. Some people were called to go out, stand in the hot sun, to stand in the rain, to stand in the cold weather when it's snowing outside, and teach the word, cry loud, spare not, like Isaiah 51 and 58 and 1 says. Some people were just meant to sit behind the keyboard and do their prophesying and their ministry online, right? But there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? And I think that we all have to understand that uh, once you come into this thing, it's easy to hate on the next man's work, but at the same time, if you're not doing nothing yourself at all, then you shouldn't have anything to say, period. Or if your way is different from theirs, focus on what you can do to help build up the nation and stop trying to correct them on what they should be doing.
Con, if I get a precept real quick,
Con.
can you go to Denal? Can you go to Sirach chapter 21,
Come, man.
verse 15? I want to read this and I want to hone in on a specific word in this verse. Sirach 25 and 15. Because what the brother Yeshaya said is very true. Hold up. 21:15, my bad. 21:15.
That's what I thought you said.
But I didn't say that. But 21.
You did say 21 at first.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, you said it first time.
Salakia. But yeah, what the brother Yeshaya said is true, man. You know, why, for example, right? If you doing something, like say you showed up to work, right, and you giving an effort, and your employee comes to work, your employee doesn't like the way that you're working, but you show up every day on time and you put your effort in. Why are they talking about you when they know that Eric or they know that Jamal don't even come to work? They know that Jalen don't even come to work, right? Why are they wasting their breath on you for? You at least showing up and giving an effort, right? They should be having all that energy towards a person that's not doing anything. But I want to read this real quick.
Come. You want somebody else to read it? Come.
I'll read it.
I'll read it.
15. If a skillful man hear a wise word, he will commend it and add unto it. Right? I wanna emphasize the word skillful. Right? When you become an evangelist, when you become somebody that is going to preach this gospel and teach people, you got to be skillful, man. You have to be skillful. So what that means is you have to have a variety of different approaches. Your approach that you think is the one tell-all be-all approach is because you lack the experience in the work. Because we see it all the time, brothers, and they see it on YouTube, they see it on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, brothers teaching on the street. They get out there and they find themselves not being as patient as they thought they was going to be with our people. They find themselves getting in arguments with our people because their approach does not work for everyone. You have to be able to switch it up. And if you think there's only one way to get the gospel, a lot of Christians think this too. If you think there's only one way to get the gospel, you have not been doing the work long enough and you're not skillful. So be a skillful man or a woman and add unto a brother's saying. Don't criticize that brother's saying, add unto it. If you skillful, right?
Oh, man. You know what I'm saying? They say a man that traveleth has much experience, has much wisdom. And with that being said, man, you get that experience when you're doing this work and you come across countless of people, right? And one thing I will say, man, if you haven't done it before, it's hard to give your opinion on it from looking from the outside in. Only because, man, what we're talking about, the things that we get into, the conversations that we have, they lead down a road that leads to passionate, right? At the end of the day, right? Every single conversation we have tends to end up passionately being displayed either by us or the other person or both, right? And so what you'll find to understand in these conversations is that's just how the conversations develop. Through that conversation and it just gets to a passionate point where voices may rise. But you got to understand what we're talking about. We're talking about this gospel. We're talking about things that we haven't understood before, things that we believe to be true, right? Things that that do, you know, take that out of us. And so when you have those conversations, you know, it just naturally it'll come out of you. And so I would say, you know, for anybody that hasn't been on the highways and byways and talked to people every week, just keep that in mind, and that, you know, sometimes you don't even see the whole conversation. You only see snips of the conversation. And just because it's a conversation, it's not going the way you like, doesn't mean it's not fruitful, right? And so when you look at that, you got to understand, man, not everybody want you can say, oh, the brother has the wrong approach, but then, like, again, not everybody wants to be talked to all quiet and boring, like, you know what I'm saying? Some people like to have those type of passionate
Hey,
conversations.
Salakia, you liable to get cussed out by some of the people we talk to. Like, for
Right.
example, Rolex or somebody. They'll tell you, man, I ain't trying to hear all that, man. I ain't trying to hear that bull, that BS, man. All that, man. I done heard it, man. I done heard that spiel. God is love. His agape love. All you gotta, I don't want to hear that. But you liable to get cussed out by some people. And so this is why you see that there was 12 disciples, 12 different personalities. Plus Christ's personality trumps all of them. Because they were so scared of Christ, they didn't know whether he was happy, he was sad, or mad, right? So you got to be able to be a chameleon when you're giving this word, man. It's not just one way.
Right. And I want to say one more thing
one
too.
way. Christ is the way, but
I want to
it's more than one way to fish.
say one thing too, right? It's kind of ignorant to chime in on somebody that has a track record of over a decade going out and evangelizing, right? Because, you know, you give the brother or sister or whatever no credit, right? You critique his approach as if it won't work, even though he's been doing this for 10 plus years, right? And then at the end of the day, it's like, why would this brother be using this approach for 10 plus years if it wasn't working? Right? Now, some people, you know, that's the definition of insanity, of doing something over and over again, even though it doesn't work. But let's give our brothers and sisters like some credit. If you've been doing it for this long and you still got the same approach, obviously, is some fruit coming from it. You know what I'm saying? Just think about that.
Con. Because a lot of times, man, what happens is brothers and sisters get caught up in their own personal, I guess you could say, their own personal way of doing things. And you got to remember, man, we as a nation, matter of fact, I'm not going to talk much. Can you, Brother Donar, bring up Romans chapter 12? Because that'll say everything I need to say. Romans chapter 12.
You know, a lot of brothers too, man. They think in their head like, man, if I was out there, I'd do it like this, and I'd probably win so many people. Well, then get out there, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't see you out there doing nothing. You know what I'm saying? Just critiquing folks. When you gonna get out there? You know what I'm saying? Not to be that guy, but you know, it's a lot of talk for people in the stands, and they don't really know how it feels to put on a jersey.
Right. Bench players talking like they starters, man.
Yeah.
Right. Scroll down just a little bit up. Scroll down right there. All right. Let's start at verse number 3, right? So this is Romans chapter 12, and starting at verse 3. It says, "For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith." So a lot of times when you come into this knowledge and you start to disagree with now, hear me out. Be practical with one another as we think about how we should be practical with those who don't know the knowledge, right? We so ready to flip the sword up and stab one of our brothers for doing something quote unquote wrong, but we want to give patience to those, we want to give more patience to those brothers and sisters who don't know the knowledge, which I'm not saying they shouldn't be, like the brother Azrael was saying. They should have just as much patience. You should have just as much patience with them as with your brother, right? So you should have patience all the way around. But you'll begin to soon realize that when you're actually out there in the trenches, a lot of times you'll realize that spirit of patience will come up out of you real quick because of some of the things that our people may say or do or believe or subscribe to. It's a series of things. But what I'm saying right now is you have to understand that you begin to start to speak against somebody's work or speak against somebody's effort or speak against somebody's bait that they fish with when you start to think of yourself a little bit too much, right? Thinking about how you would do it, thinking about if I was out there, like the brother just said, I would do it this way. You know what I'm saying? And that's a spirit that we have to kill, right? We have to kill that spirit of, hey, if that was me, I do it like this, right? Because that's something that even comes up in my mind. You know what I'm saying? When we out at camp and one brother is teaching, sometimes, yeah, like brother may go to a precept and I say, well, he could have went to this, but you know what? I'm not the teacher, and who am I to come to the brother, you know what I'm saying, right in the midst of his message and say, hey, hold on, brother, you should go here because this is what's going, it's not for me to dictate whichever route a brother chooses to win a soul over. You know what I'm saying?
Man. And why you just say that, man? Sometimes you out there and you have those feelings like, dang, a brother should have went here instead of there, and then you let the conversation develop, and it turns out the place where the brother actually went is receivable by the person you're talking to, and
right.
for some odd reason you read something that connected with that person and it got them more into the conversation. So you never really know. um there's more than one way to skin a cat, especially with this Bible, right?
Right.
There's so many good things in it, so many things to be brought out and displayed, to where you can't really critique why somebody pulled this rather than that, because they're all scripture, they're all profitable for doctrine. You know what I'm saying? When you're pulling them out in a way where you're trying to explain to somebody the principles of this thing, right? There's multiple facets of and directions you can go.
Con, which leads me to read this. This is Romans chapter 12 and verse number 4. It says, for as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office, verse 5, so we, being many, are one body in Christ, and everyone members one of another. So we all are one body, but we all don't have the same department, which is what leads me to go back and say, if your department is the more soft-toned, mellow-toned approach, then take that approach and use it to the glorification and edification of the kingdom. But don't sit up here and say, well, I'm soft-spoken. Brother over here is not delivering the message the way I would deliver it. So he that's not Christ-like. That's not of Christ, right? Because that's brother's favorite line and sister's favorite line to go to. Are they teaching Christ? Is that Christ-like? That's not of Christ. And like the brother Denal said before we got on this call, when we was, talking about the topic of the lesson, a lot of people misunderstand Christ's demeanor, right? He was an austere man. If you could go to the book of Luke chapter 12 and verse 51 real quick, because people need to understand that Christianity has done a number on a lot of people, make people think that Christ is just this, give me a hug, come here, let's talk about it, hug it out. Jesus Christ is peaceful, love is patient, love is kind, love won't do this, love won't do that, right? That's what people think it is, right? But this is Luke chapter 12 and verse 51. It says, suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth, right? This is Christ speaking. You think I'm coming to give peace on earth? What does he say? I tell you nay, but rather division, right? Go to the next verse.
Con.
Water. Verse 52. For from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. So Christ just explained to you that he's not here to bring peace, but division. When he was walking on the earth, his job wasn't to bring all hands together. His job was to separate the sheep from the goats. which will also be done in that day. Because he got to separate the people who want to take heed and follow the law, statutes, and commandments of his father, and got to separate them from the people who don't want to take heed and don't want to follow no law, statutes, and commandments, right? That's why he goes on to say, who is my father? Who is my mother? Who is my brother? Those who do the will of my father, right? That's the people that Christ was coming to, I guess you could say, break bread with, be peaceful with. But the only way he could do that is by being an austere man and causing division amongst people, right? Because Christ is not uniting all religions, you know what I'm saying, under one. That's not what the way the world conceptualized the idea of Christ or the message of Christ, the purpose of Christ, the identity of Christ. That's not what Christ, even out of his own mouth, came to do. He came to cause division amongst us, right? People need to understand that it wasn't no peaceful message every single time. Because the brother, go ahead.
Like a lot of times, man, you hear Christ speaking in the scriptures, man. Right? He's he's austere, of course, but a lot of times he's speaking, man. It's not sweet and gentle and considerate. A lot of times, man, he was getting fed up with a lot of people, man. He called a lot of people out their names, foxes, snakes, all of that, right? He said to the disciples or to the Pharisees, I forgot which ones. He said, I think it was the disciples, where he said, "How long should I suffer to be with you?" Right? And what he really meant when he said that, if you read the context, it was like, "Dang, y'all niggas ain't gonna know what to do without me." You know what I'm saying? And or when he said to the Pharisees, he said, "Are you guys not doctors in the law? Have you not read where it says X, Y, and Z?" He's being rhetorical. He's chumping them off. I thought you guys were doctors. Like, I thought y'all supposed to know this, right? Now, in today's time, if we were to speak to somebody like that, it would be considered rude. It would be considered, "Oh, you ain't got to do that, all that, bro.
You don't have the fruits of the spirit."
Right? You don't have the fruits of the spirit when, Christ spoke in a way where he wasn't always gentle and nice with folks, right? Especially dealing with folks that are hard-headed and dealing with folks. And this goes out to everybody that does the work. We deal with folks that are underlying petty, and we can sense it in the conversation. A lot of people can't sense it from watching videos and stuff like that. But when you're talking to somebody, you can tell when somebody's playing dumb. You can tell when somebody's being petty in their undertone, right? And so a lot of times, a lot of brothers give that same energy back, right? And you give that, and a lot of times what happens is we give that same energy back, and we're held accountable for it. But in the conversation ends up being fruitful, because when you give that energy back, they might give it back to you, but sooner down the line, you're gonna come to an agreement, and you're gonna be like, "All right, bro, I'm gonna stop playing. We can have a real conversation," and then the fruit is made from that, right?
God. Even Christ in Matthew 23 and 33, what he said, "Ye vipers, ye serpents." No, he said, "Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers," right? Like, these were not nice words. Even in Matthew 15, right? When it was talking about the Canaanite woman, and what did he liken her unto? He likened her unto a dog, right? So you got to understand that these are not words that, if they were used in today's time in conversation with other people, people would look at you like, "Oh, you do not have to say that. That is not the spirit of Christ." Yes, it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to understand that's why it's important for people to read the scripture. If you could pull up another precept, stay in the book of Luke, but go to chapter 2, right? And read verse number, you can start at 45. You don't got to click on it though. Just keep it small so that way we can scroll, right?
All right. Yeah, man. Christ used to say stuff like, "Oh, ye of little faith." Man, if you was talking and having a conversation with somebody on the street and you told them they had little faith, bro, they might spaz out on you, bro.
Yeah,
Right.
"Oh, you to judge my faith."
But
He said, "If I had a faith as the size of a mustard seed."
mess around and call somebody Satan in the middle of talking to him.
Right.
See how they react.
Right.
or like like he did Thomas, right? Surnamed Didymus, right? When he said, "Hey, You believe because you feel, but blessed are those that believe that have not seen. Pretty much telling him, hey, look, bro, they're gonna be some people that are greater than you because you doing a lot right now. You're
Right.
so simple that you gotta actually see and touch me. But living in
And
a
it's
emotional, sensitive time.
right. And that's why we have to understand that even in today's time, today's generation, man, of young men are a lot more sensitive as well, too, because we've been so whitewashed and Americanized, man. We don't understand that the true demeanor, the true character and culture of this people was not necessarily just, you know, always just this peaceful type. There was a time to be peaceful, and there was a time to get become kind of a tyrant, but in a respectful way, right? But let's read this because this is going into another point, right? This is Luke chapter 2. I'm gonna start at verse 45, right? It says, because at this point Christ is young, and it says, and when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem seeking him, right? So they're seeking out Christ, Mary, right? Verse 46, and it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. Now, the reason I wanted to have the brother go here is because what does it say in First Peter? As a newborn babe, desire the sincere milk of the word, or I think that's Second Peter, right? But a lot of times we forget the precepts that remind us to, when we come into this knowledge, come as little children, right? So Christ as a child, what he was doing, he now at this point he knows who he is. This is Christ. He knows who he is at this age, that he's sitting at the feet of the doctors in the midst of the temple, you know what I'm saying, hearing them and asking them questions, right? He knows who he is. He's not sitting up here and going around and listening to what people are teaching and then saying, oh, that ain't the way to bring it out. You know what I'm saying? And that ain't gonna cut it. You know what I'm saying? At this age, he's sitting down, listening to people, asking questions and learning, right? Can you scroll down to verse 52? Matter of fact, let me start it. Go back up, Salakia, my bad. Go to verse, I'm gonna just read it, verse 47. It says, and all that heard him were astonished at his understanding. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said unto him, son, why hast thou thus dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, how is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my father's business? So again, Christ know who he is at this point, right? Verse 51. Well, let's jump down to verse 52, right? It says, and we read it as written, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man, right? So even that, as a child, Christ knew who he was, yet he knew he had to be about his father's business, but he didn't go about it in the way that young men in today's time choose to go about it. They go to look at the doctors and the priests and the scribes and the elders, and they look at them and say, you bringing it out in a way that's not Christ-like. And that's not true, right? People have to remember what love is, right? Love is an action. It's not necessarily a feeling, right? If I tell you I love you, but I punch you in the face every day that I see you for no reason, and I laugh at you when you're hurt and bleeding and crying, and I'm not helping you, but I tell you I love you, that's not love, right? Love is me saying, hey, don't go sleep with that woman because she married to so-and-so, so-and-so. And if you do that, he could probably retaliate. And I don't want a situation where y'all both lose your life behind a woman, because we've seen that before. We've heard of cases like that before. I've heard of situations like that before. I know people who are in situations like that. That's love by warning our people. That's love by correcting our people and telling our people, don't do this. That's love when you have the opportunity to do something against somebody and you don't. That's what love is. That's what it says in 1 John 3 and 18. Let us not love in word, you know what I'm saying? But let us love in deed, right? So can brothers hear me? I don't know if my phone freezing. My phone just had froze for a second. But nonetheless, All I'm saying is that we have to remind ourselves, man, even when you're young in this knowledge, right? You got to know your role, right? And you got to kind of play it, right? It's a precept in First Corinthians that says something to the nature of, dang, should have, I didn't even think about this, but it says something to the nature of, you're not able to handle meat right now, right? But once you are able to handle meat, you graduate from, eating bread to eating meat, right? You graduate from drinking milk to eating bread. So there's stages in development that I think every Israelite man, woman, and child must go through. And I'm not talking about growing up and becoming an adult from a teenager. I'm talking about in the spirit of, learning wisdom and understanding according to, the doctrine of the Lord, the true sound doctrine of the Lord that can't be gainsaid against nor resisted, like it says in Luke 21:15, right? And people have to understand that when you come as a child in this thing, you know in this thing, sometimes it's best to sit back, kick your feet up, and learn from the elders. Even when I came in the truth, I didn't just come in the truth, wake up and just start teaching. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't my stages of development may not have been long as other brothers, but I didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm gonna go teach the word and just knew everything. It took for me to have conversation with these brothers on the screen. It took for me to be around other brothers from other camps and congregations to learn more knowledge, right? There are some stuff in Iraq that I learned from brothers that we fellowship with in Atlanta from time to time. So there's a bunch of things that I've learned from just sitting back and observing
Yeah,
and understanding that I'm a child, so I got to drink this milk first before I chew this bread. Go ahead.
Lakia, but man, doing this work, people that do this work can make it look easy, for lack of better terms. They can make it look easy, man. But like the brother said, nobody just hopped out there. When we talking to people on the street, we got to remind them all the time. Like, I know you looking in awe, like, because we got some precepts that we remembered. We read the whole Bible. We out here being bold. I know you looking in awe, but it took some time to get where we at. We not expecting you to be right here overnight. You know what I'm saying? We got to tell them that because we can make it look easy. If you sitting back on social media or you sitting back watching other brothers do it, it can look easy to where you just want to get out there too. But what we're saying is you gotta learn this skill just like any skill, whether it's welding, painting, whether it's HVAC, electrician. It's a skill. You gotta learn this skill and master it to where you're confident, right? Because a lot of times we see that confidence go out the window when it's time to shine. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that we're doing this for any glory or anything, but we make it look easy to the point to where others feel like they can criticize, right? People criticize on something that they think that they can do, and it's no way to know that you can do it unless you do it. Earlier, the brother Yeshaya said, "You're gonna brothers and sisters out there saying stuff like, if it was me." And I'm gonna go ahead and read the title of this lesson. You got some nerve, because you don't have to say if it was me, because it can be you, but it's not. So you need to, instead of trying to critique brothers that it is that are doing it, you got to ask yourself, why isn't it me? Why haven't I done that?
Right, man. Because I'll
I
tell you
know the
one
better
thing.
way. Why am I not doing it?
I'll tell you one thing, man. A lot of people think they can go out there and talk to folks because they get on social media and they might go live or they might be upload a video on their story just talking to themselves, right? It might seem easy when you just talking to yourself on your camera, but one thing about it, when you're actually talking to a human being and you got to have the patience to deal with somebody that keeps cutting you off in the middle of your speech, right? You can never land your plane, right? But you still got to be patient enough so you can land your plane, right? A lot of people will,
Or they might
find out,
leave before you can even land your
right?
plane.
A lot of people will quickly find out that you don't have as much patience as you thought you had, right? It's easy to talk up on social media and record your videos on your story and all that stuff and speak your mind. But how many of y'all can withstand trying to speak your mind when you constantly being interrupted, or you're constantly having to switch the topic of the conversation because somebody asked this question or somebody, you know what I'm saying, or just chaos in general? Because every time you have a conversation out there, the devil definitely comes to try to take away that word that you're trying to sow in somebody's heart. Some type of distraction, right? Whether it's a homeless person, a crackhead, a stinger, I don't know, motorcycles, a plane, an ambulance. Something's gonna happen to try to distract you, and you still gotta stay home. You still gotta deliver, and it has to be clear, cut, and concise, right?
Uh, because man, it's like like what's that saying? If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, man. And some people are just keyboard warriors, and they say that ain't gonna win no souls. But you got to think, man, especially with large camps. And the brother that commented on the post, it was a post that I have on my Instagram page, and the brother Captain Taz from Samkari was teaching a beautiful. He was, I mean, I don't see how one could confuse what happened in that video with yelling. That was straight passion, in my opinion, because again, we have scriptures that point to almost everything, if not everything, that happens in life. I would say the scriptures point to everything that happens in life, man. There's a scripture for everything. And in that moment that Captain Taz had, it wasn't a moment of rage and just arrogance and obnoxiousness and just railing on somebody. It was a moment of passion. Surely oppression maketh a wise man mad. That's Ecclesiastes 7:7. He was talking to a brother. The brother didn't get it. You know what I'm saying? The Israelite brother didn't get it. And he was just like, really, I don't care. And Captain was like, you don't care that your people been oppressed in this land, and that in this land you got to speak English, but when you go back to your home, when you go back to, your country, you got to speak a different language to communicate them, and they force that on you. You don't care about that. And I don't see how one could confuse that with yelling at somebody, because that, again, that just look like straight passion to me. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes, again, it's okay to be the little homie, bro. Everybody want to be the big homie. It's okay to be the little homie sometimes. It's okay to learn. It's okay to wait your time, bro, because when your time comes, when it, like the brother Azrael said, when it is you, you'll be able to know that, okay, I've learned enough to handle a lot of different situations, a lot of different spirits. But if you somebody that just learned and now you want to go jump out and try to, teach, it's gonna be hard. And you got, like the brother said, man, you just got some nerve speaking against men who've labored, who've put in a lot of bricks. And Captain Taz was one of the brothers who helped bring me into the knowledge of the truth. Because I didn't, he was the first person I ever watched when it comes to camps. I didn't know about camps before I came across a video one day of Israelites on YouTube, and it happened to be Sakari San Diego, and it just happened to be Captain Taz being the speaker. And this was back in the fall of 2019. You know what I'm saying? This is back late 2019. And I was just learning about the truth. You know what I'm saying? I hadn't fully assimilated into it yet, but I'm a living fruit of his works. I'm a living fruit of the works that other brothers have put in as well. These brothers on the screen too. So again, it's easy to say what's not going to work. But once you realize, oh, well, this worked because I'm a living witness, then, you run out of stuff to say. Right.
I got a precept, man, real quick.
Con.
This is Brother Paul, man, in 1 Corinthians. He says, 1 Corinthians 3:6, I have planted, Apollos water, but God gave the increase, man. Just letting you know, man. In this walk, some are gonna plant, some are gonna water, right? And sometimes when you plant, man, it gets dirty. You get your hands dirty, right? You doing and saying things you really don't want to do and say, right? But at the end of the day, it's a necessity. And sometimes people prefer to water, and that's just going out there, and you pour water on somebody in a blazing heat. It might feel good. You might be talking smooth words to them, right? Some people say them smooth words. Some others say some harsh words, right? But it's necessary. right? And so some people water, some people plant. And so, I mean, some people plant, some people water, but at the end of the day, God gives the increase and whatever. Countless of times you hear somebody saying something like this at the end of a conversation. I get what you're saying. I believe it, but you could have said it better, brother or sister. If what he's saying or she's saying is correct, right? And you feel what they're saying, that honestly, this little side comment really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you got what was trying to be conveyed, right? Whether it was harshly put or not. You know what I'm saying? Because who would have say if that person would have conveyed it to you in a different way, would you have received it at all, right? At the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters, is that you receive it and it's clear, cut, and concise, right?
Con. And with that, man, I don't have nothing else, brother Azrael. You got anything to add?
Man. Just, if you ever find yourself saying, if it was me, ask yourself why it's not.
Right. And if you ask yourself why it's not, and then you start giving excuses as to why it's not, then there's your answer. Sit back, either be skillful and add to, or sit back and learn, or just don't say nothing at all if you ain't got nothing nice to say, right? Like grandma used to tell us, right? But with that, man, brothers are hopeful elect, signing off on this Think About It Thursday. Most High willing, you were edified. And Lord willing, we'll be on here again, maybe come to Sabbath day. But we say shalom.